This is something that happened to me back in 10th grade. I couldn't sleep, and I was feeling restless, so I decided to take a walk along the greenway near my house. Most people would have reservations about walking through the woods alone in the dead of night, but it was a safe neighborhood, and I knew the greenway like the back of my hand. No more than 5 minutes of walking through the woods, and I hear a girl singing. I recognize the tune right away. It's Camptown Races. You know, Camptown ladies sing this song, doo-dah, doo-dah. I look around for the girl, but it's pitch black. Not wanting to suddenly come across her and frighten her, I shout out, "You have a nice voice." No reply, she just keeps singing. Weird. I continue walking, but the singing isn't getting any further away. Is she following me? Or are we just coincidentally walking the same direction? I make a sharp turn and start walking down another path. The singing follows. Another sharp turn. Again, it follows. Okay, now I'm 100% sure this bitch is following me. I start trying to pin the location of the voice with no luck. I think she was purposefully changing her volume to prevent me from knowing whether I was getting closer or further. And now I'm really starting to get freaked out. I bolt and start sprinting back home. I was running track at the time, so I was pretty certain I could ditch her. I get home, kick off my shoes, and turn on my TV. I'm about 10 minutes into an episode of Aqua Teen when I hear a voice that's not coming from the TV. It's a girl's voice, singing fucking Camptown Races. For a brief moment, I just sit there in pure terror. This can't be happening. I run outside barefoot and frantically look around. I realize that the voice is coming from above me. She's on the fucking garage roof. I kept a ladder on the side of the garage so I could climb up and smoke weed. My parents thought I was tanning. The ladder was the only way up or down, unless you wanted to jump and chance a sprained ankle. This is it. I've got her. I race up the ladder, just in time to see a figure in a red hoodie disappear off the side of the roof leading to the backyard. She had jumped. I watched her race across my backyard, completely unfazed by the fall, and book it over our 6-foot fence like it was no big deal. I briefly considered chasing after her, but I couldn't in my bare feet. Frankly, I don't know if I wanted to. I don't believe in ghosts and ghouls, but I'm still freaked out by the whole thing to this day. My friend's dad, we'll call him Jack, and his brother, we'll call him Tom, lived with each other in the 80s. It was just the two of them living in the house, no one else. So, this one night, Jack is coming home pretty late, and walks into his living room to see a bunch of old people sitting around talking. As he walks in, they all just quiet down and awkwardly look at him as he walks by. He doesn't see Tom anywhere, so he just assumes that Tom will be back to tend to his guests. Jack has work the next morning, so he goes in his room to get some sleep, but is kept awake from all the people talking. He walks out from his room and is promptly met up with Tom, who was coming out of his room to tell Jack to keep his friends quiet. However, Jack was coming out to tell Tom to keep his friends quiet. They walk out from the hallway into the living room, only to see that it's empty, with the leftover smell of musk. I delivered newspapers in a fairly rural area the summer after I graduated high school. One night, it's pouring rain, and I'm driving down this dirt road that is a dead end to a farmer's house. I've been down this road a few dozen times and know the routine. Drop the paper off in the box at the end of the drive, turn around, go back up the road, and on to my next stop. This time, as I'm getting out of my car to place the newspaper in the holder, I see this man in the ditch wearing a drenched white shirt, running at me as fast as he can. He got within 20 feet of me. I could see what my mind pictured as a hatchet or an axe. I had never ran so hard in my life. I ran back around the front of my car, jumped in, and took off. Everything happened so fast that I almost didn't realize where I was. It must have been about 5 or 10 miles later that I attempted to call 911. I didn't have any signal using my Motorola flip phone in the middle of nowhere in the year 2000. I had to stop at a farmer's house to call the police at 2 a.m. It turns out that guy wound up killing himself. When I lived in South Africa, I traveled a lot with a Christian missionary, humanitarian aid worker. He handled the spiritual stuff. I tended to work more with the local people, helping them with non-spiritual issues. In July 2010, we went to a village in the middle of nowhere. As soon as we stepped out the truck, we knew something was wrong. We hadn't been able to contact our guy in the village all day, and there was no one around at all. We went from house to house, looking for, well, anyone. But everywhere was completely empty. Eventually, we saw a figure run around the corner of a building on the far side of the village. It was a young woman, stark naked, running straight for us. Her arms were flailing, and she was running like an animal, occasionally dropping to all fours, then back on her feet. As she got closer, the guy I was with told me to get back in the truck. Then, he screamed at me to get back in the truck. I'd seen this guy watch a witch doctor burn a dozen chickens alive and not bat an eyelid, so when he lost his shit, I knew it was serious. I closed the truck door as she reached us. She was covered in blood. There were cuts and slices all over her face, arms, and breasts, and one of her ears was missing. There was a lot of blood. Her teeth were bloody, and she had a look in her eye of absolute untamed rage. The screeching sound she made is unlike anything I've ever heard before or since. I can still hear it so vividly in my mind. Looking into her face, seeing her wide psychotic eyes and gaping mouth as she made that unholy sound froze me in my seat. The guy had started the truck and already started reversing up the dirt track, but she followed. He turned the car, all the while she was scratching at the windows and metalwork, and then sped off. She followed us. She didn't keep up, obviously, but for a while I thought she was going to. I've never seen someone run that fast in bare feet. The journey back to our base town was almost silent. I spent most of it concentrating on the sound of my own breathing and the rumble of the road. I asked the guy I was with what that was and what we should do. He said the girl was no doubt insane, had a psychotic break or something, but the locals would have immediately thought she was possessed. If she didn't kill herself, the other villagers would within days. He suggested they had gathered in one house for safety. When I was 6, 28 years ago, my mom and dad took me and my younger sister to a Major League Baseball game, leaving my grandmother to babysit my youngest sister. When we got back, my grandmother told my folks that 2 guys had come by the house with photography equipment and asked whether a young girl with red curly hair lived there, and that they had spotted her and thought she would be a great child model for some advertising work they were doing. When my grandmother said she wasn't home, they said they would come back another time. My grandmother and mom didn't think much about it, but my dad said something's not right here and called the police. 15 minutes later, several FBI agents showed up and began conducting interviews with my grandmother and my parents while I ran around and showed the agents my Matchbox police helicopter. It turns out, we had been targeted by a child theft ring. The photographers would take a bunch of photos and wait until the toddler threw a tantrum. The photographers would then ask the mother to go grab a toy to keep the child entertained. While the mother was out of the room, they would grab the child and bolt, leaving everything else behind. The FBI told my folks that my sister had already been sold and would have been out of the country within 24 hours if they had gotten her. We were advised to change preschools and other aspects of our daily routine. It still gives me the chills to think about what could have happened to her. Needless to say, my mom became pretty overprotective. It was a few years before she even trusted us with a babysitter.